There's a Bible verse, I think it is, that I really like, that goes like, if your right hand causes you to sin, then cut it off. Or I think that's roughly the paraphrase version. And what that means is, so the way I interpret it, is that if something that you think you need in your life is causing you more harm and discomfort and misery than good, you might be surprised to find out you don't really need it. And you should just fucking cut your losses and discard it completely. All right, it's like you don't need your right hand necessarily, as the metaphor goes, because you always have your left. So, as an example, your phone. Let's say you can't survive without your phone, or you believe you can't. And the moment you think you've lost it, you start losing your shit, and your world is crumbling before you. Or a better example would be like somebody in your life that you think you need, or just people in general in your life that you think you need. Otherwise, you can't go on living. You'll be surprised to find that that's not the case at all. And everything that you do need is truly within you. All right? But we delude ourselves into thinking that we can't live without this or that, and we become slaves to things. But if you find that you're clinging on too much to someone or something, then you must get rid of it in order to destroy the codependency, but also to teach yourself that you can do without it. And then you go on in life, not having it, and you realize you're just as well off, if not better off, in fact. You might find that you're better off after discarding said thing. And, whether it be toxic relationships or needing people around me at all times and not being able to just live with myself and be alone, I convinced myself that, I just always needed somebody. It doesn't matter who. It just matters that it was another person around. Otherwise, I could not go on living because I could not face myself. I felt like loneliness, or it wasn't really loneliness, it was aloneness, was like a death sentence. It was the last thing that anyone should ever do. And it's more fearful than death itself. And that's not the case at all. All right, it's just not the case. But society, the mainstream, would have you believe otherwise. There's this instilled FOMO inside you, that if you don't have X, Y, or Z, then you're missing out. The fear of missing out is drilled into your fucking head, but it's just delusion and it's fake. And these things, or these people that they'll have you believe that you need in order to live, you'll learn one day that you never needed any of it. That you were completely fine on your own, just with your own mind, your own thoughts, and just yourself. In fact, I gained more clarity in life upon essentially distancing myself from everybody in life. I gained better perspective by having no influences around me. Because when you have tons of influences of various people constantly feeding you information, you're just going to be the average of those influences. Your entire belief system and the way you see the world and the way you see life will simply be based on those influences. So you can't actually think for yourself. You're just so stuck in your network that you can't break outside of that box, because you'll just naturally conform to whatever's around you. But if you have nothing around you or no one around you, then you can truly start to think for yourself. And then you can truly start to see things as they really are, instead of through some specific lens or some tainted view. But yeah, I like Stoicism a lot because it kind of teaches you that you don't need all these luxuries. You don't really need anything. Everything is temporary, everything is transient. And it's better to make peace with the fact that everything around you will one day leave you. And to, teach yourself that you don't need any of it. You'll be completely fine with it, and you'll be completely fine when it's gone and without it. All right? It doesn't make you any less. It doesn't make you any less valuable of a person. It doesn't make you less of a person. It doesn't make you worse off. For instance, you don't need pussy 24/7 around the clock, but a lot of guys are convinced that they do. And if they don't have it, then they're a failure, they don't measure up, and they're a fucking loser, and their genes don't deserve to be spread, and they're essentially the biggest failure in the world. But that thinking is so fucking bad for you. Because at the expense of everything else in your life, the most important things in your life, you will pursue getting pussy, let's say, and being the master pickup artist of the world. But for one, that's not sustainable because that's something that's not entirely in your control. You might think it is, but it's not. Two, that's a drug just like anything else. Just like alcohol, just like coffee, just like weed, just like coke. That's a drug. And you're constantly upping the high in order to get the same sensation. And you're constantly chasing that dragon that you'll never have made it. It's just an endless chase. All right? You can just do more and do more and do more, but there's just a never-ending level up. And I guess that can be said about anything. But when you look back at the end of your life, do you want to be like, yeah, I use that time wisely and I'm happy with what I spent it on? Or are you going to be like, fuck, I have nothing to show for all that time. I got to nut in a lot of warm holes, but fuck, that's kind of done nothing for me. It's just a lot of time spent on that shit. I didn't really cultivate anything for myself. None of those people are in my life anymore. It hasn't produced any meaningful relationships. And they kind of just used me for sex, and I used them for sex. So, yeah, you just have to be very aware of what is currently in your life. What are you dependent on? Or what do you think you're dependent on? And how can you convince yourself that you're not dependent on said thing? In fact, the worst case scenario that you can envision in your mind, like let's say just not getting laid for a year straight, go ahead and don't get laid for a year straight on purpose. And then after that year, you'll realize, nah, I'm fucking fine. If anything, I got a lot done in that year. Wow. Okay? That's it, guys.